feel greasy. Where's your makeup artist? I'll be in my trailer.
I think you're holding the makeup artist. Welcome to the show. Hi, welcome to another episode of Please Hang Out With Me, I'm Going Nuts, a show about constraints. I'm your host, Channing Kennedy. With me, as always, is my co-host, a baby. You want to come over here?
There you go. Okay.
By the way, have you pooped? With me today is Cyrus Tabar, musician, filmmaker, man about town. What are you getting? What is this? And fellow dad. And
yes,
you and I met in a program run by the hospital where our kids were born, which was actually pretty innovative. It was sort of a expecting parent cohort. Look at this.
Oh, whoa.
A sterile setting, both figuratively and literally. And I think we both introduced ourselves as blandly as possible.
Yes.
And then sometime later, I saw your picture in an email from CAMFest, the Asian American Film Festival. And I was like,
that's weird.
That's weird that there's two guys named Cyrus who look like that. So you've been making music for quite some time. And doing video a little bit, not quite as long as that. Is that right?
Yeah. I started playing piano when I was like 4 or something like that.
Oh, no kidding. Okay.
And I mean, I wasn't making music at that time, but that was sort of my introduction to, I guess, the arts. And I think things, piano is such like a universal instrument, I feel like. Once you know that, you kind of can do a lot of different other things. So I kind of went to violin and like anything with strings, basically, I was really interested in. And then through, not to go too far in the past, but through...
You already went to 4,
this,
so...
Yeah, this orchestra, this like youth orchestra that my parents enrolled me in, which is amazing. There was all these other programs, like there was a photography program, there was a poetry program, and it was all on like Saturday mornings.
Oh, wow.
That, I feel like whenever I look back on like where did that all begin, where did my sort of interest and love for art begin? And I think it was kind of around there because they're just introducing you to everything. And I learned how to, develop in a dark room and all of that and things that, looking back at it is like, that's amazing. I hope that there are other programs like that now. But yeah, so, I mean, early on, piano was my introduction to everything, but video and stuff like that is definitely more recent. I forgot to brush my teeth this morning. If you want to just pass that over. Whoa!
When I was like 25 and I would meet somebody new and they'd be like, so, what's your story? And I would just have like this college entrance exam, like bullet points of like things that have happened to me that I could rattle off to them. Just be like, well, I dropped out of college.
Yeah.
And a girl broke up with me.
Yeah.
My parents got a divorce. And now when I meet people, I'm just like, oh yeah, I do consulting or something. And I don't really know. And I will like forget things that have happened to me.
Yes.
Do other people feel like this? Do you feel like you're reaching a point now where just there's too much stuff that's happened to you and you're losing your narrative, especially now that you're a dad? Not that losing a narrative is a bad thing, because like it's also just it feels
maybe evolving would be a good word.
Are you evolving into a new, more complicated Pokemon with a different moveset?
Yes, exactly. I'm on level 32. I've been going to a lot of film festivals in the last few years, and I think that has sort of forced me to try to condense my narrative or what I think of led to that point. But that's purely from like how did you get to that sort of creative point of your career, of your life? Whereas it would be a different question of how did you get to the point where you wanted to have a kid, or how did you get to a point where, that kind of thing.
So what was your path to deciding that you wanted to have a kid? Was it something you always wanted to do?
No. No. I would say no. Up until the last couple years, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Of like...
How old are you now?
I'm 33.
Okay.
I had to think about that. I feel like after 31, I just forgot.
Yeah. Just only celebrate the prime number birthdays at a certain point. This is a good zine, so let's put it over here.
I'll look at that later. I guess I should say that my sister, I'm 9 years younger than her, and she had her daughter, my niece, when she was 19 or 20 maybe. And like she grew up, my niece grew up in our household, like with my parents, my sister, me, and she was there. And my sister was a single mom. And so I saw firsthand at a young age, I was still like,
oh my God, that's what was in there? Jesus. Okay.
I grew up with a baby in the household and got to watch her, grow older, and my sister raise her. And I would babysit sometimes. Again, I was pretty young, so I was only absorbing so much of it, but I did get to see it, witness firsthand. And I think that had a really big impact on the way that I thought about parenting, maybe, or at least about raising a child. I knew that it was a lot of work. I like remember that very vividly, that it's definitely a lot of work. Now, after having a kid, though, after the first year, it's more work than I thought it was. I thought I had a pretty good idea, but no, it's definitely a lot of work. So I don't know how I got to the point of wanting a child. I think it's almost like something in me changed, and I felt like I would really love that opportunity to raise a child and be part of someone's life in that way. Yeah, it's hard to explain. I don't know if you have that same sort of idea, but
yeah, I thought that I wanted to have a kid until I was in a position to have a kid, and then I realized I had never actually really thought about it.
Yeah.
And then I went to therapy for 5 years, and eventually got to the point where I felt like I wouldn't completely fuck it up so badly that I could never ask forgiveness.
Yeah.
No,
like I'm like just stable enough that I can do this. Oh, tiger, baboon.
You got babooned. What were your parents doing? Like, what were their lives like when they're the age that you are now?
I think they were similarly struggling. We were in Los Angeles.
And you talked. We talked a little bit beforehand about your dad is Iranian, and he
from Tehran.
And he wasn't like kicked out of the country, but it was a really good idea for him to not be in the country.
Yeah. I mean, in a way, a lot of people were kicked out or left or sort of refugee, but not quite around that time. He wasn't involved politically or as an activist at all, but just because of the way their own beliefs, right? And the kind of lives that they wanted to lead, they thought that it would be a good time to leave right before the revolution. Right. So he came from Tehran, my mom came from Tokyo, and she came to LA just to study. I don't know why I'm holding this picture of a baboon up as I talk about this. They met in the melting pot of Los Angeles and as like bank tellers, I think.
Oh, wow.
My dad is still like in banking and financial stuff. My mom's an art teacher. But yeah, they were both tellers. When they had me, they had already had my sister. Well, my sister came from a different father, actually, 9 years before. My mom met my dad. They had me, and I think my mom was in her, like, 31, maybe? So around the same. My dad's saying 32. So it's very similar. I would say that, right now, we're sort of reversed. Whereas Kayla, my wife, she works full-time at a job. I also work, but it's freelance, and I'm at home a lot more. Whereas my dad was the one working a full-time job, and my mom was, I think, at that point staying at home, and eventually went into teaching art. Probably when I was in, I think, grade school or something.
Does your mom have a background as an artist?
Yeah. She went to school for painting and like art history and stuff. So yeah, she's a painter. She's a really amazing painter, actually. And since I left for college, which was like 15 years ago, she has kind of gotten back into painting, which is really nice to see. And I was like, oh, I was holding you back. Okay. That was kind of like one of the first indicators. I was like, oh, okay, so it is hard to have a kid. Like, you put away your passion for so long.
Yeah.
And I remember, like, my dad working a lot. He was always working and because my mom was at home watching me pretty much. So not that that's a bad thing, or I don't hold anything against anyone in that case, but that's just how they had to get it done.
Right.
And I guess for me, I'm trying to make the freelance thing work because I have my own practice, and you know, things are kind of, wheels are turning for me, which is good. And I'm very like starting my career, I would say, as my own, in my own sense as a filmmaker. So I would like to keep that going as much as I can. But of course, once you have a kid, you know, after this first year, I didn't realize that I basically had no time to work on anything. I don't know if you had that too, but
well,
it was
I feel like you've still been, I mean, maybe this is just like the way that Instagram lies to people, but it seems like you're still putting out music.
Yeah.
You still have like things that you're doing.
Yeah.
And I feel like you've, like you still take beautiful photographs. I feel like that's been a part of your art practice.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Photography is great because you can kind of do it anytime, especially with a phone, right? That's all you need is like your iPhone or whatever.
Right.
And you can make a photograph. So that's really cool. I guess on that note, I've been trying to make things as easy as possible for myself.
Right.
Or at least if I can't do this one thing that's a little more time consuming or difficult, what is it that I can do that is more accessible? So photography is one, like a big one. Digital photography. Like analog is like, I just can't do that right now. It's too expensive.
Right.
I keep having the same epiphany like every few weeks of like, writing is something that you can do that's super creative, that you don't need really any money for. You don't need any crew or team to do it. You don't need anything. You can just write and do the thing, you know? Whereas like if you want to make a film, that's like hard. You know, you need a lot of things for that. Whereas writing, you can just do, just like photography. Look at that. Oh, we can make a flip book.
Ooh.
Oh man, that you could take apart.
So one of your films, which is maybe like the first piece of your work that I saw, is It Is What It Is, which is about you trying to dig into your own family history. What I thought was really interesting about it is that at a certain point in the film, you like your family pushes back. Like maybe you shouldn't learn all these things about your family, and especially not in the form of a documentary film, be it freeform or otherwise. And that's kind of where the film wraps up, where there's like you know, you say something like, maybe some mysteries aren't supposed to be solved. I feel like this is generational, but maybe it's like just me or like my circle of folks. But there was a school of thought in art for a long time that you should not respect people's privacy if it means like making like important, with lots of air quotes around it, art. How did you make that call? Did you feel any like internal or external pressure to keep digging and see what came up? Yeah,
good question. That's I think something that I was dealing with during the making of it. That film too it's all made with, or mostly, I would say 90% of my family's home movies. So there was some stuff that I found, a few shots here and there. And so that wasn't something like I had to get a crew and get funding for and then, you know, go into production. It was just me collecting, looking at the footage and like, what is this? What do I have? And at the same time, interviewing, you know, my family members and trying to kind of meditate on whatever it is that I heard from them and like try and figure that out myself. Because as I was interviewing people, specifically like my aunt, my dad's sister, and him, and my mom, and all that, I noticed that the same events would be totally different to them.
Oh, yes.
Like, totally. It was a different event, almost. Whoop. I love that method of just going and making and figuring out the film as you're editing it, as you're writing it.
Because that's the way for film, which is normally, it can't be improvisational because you have so many people who have to be in step. It's a way to actually turn that into something like an improvisational medium.
Yeah, definitely. And so as I was interviewing people, I realized that just the fact that I am bringing up these stories again and making people, my family members, recall certain things that they never wanted to think about anymore, that was stirring things up a little bit.
Oh.
In a way that was really like, I feel like affecting, or my mom was worrying about it, my sister was worrying about it, and they were just like, what are you doing? You know, like, why, like, we don't talk about this stuff, you know, this is the stuff that we leave. And I think at a certain point I realized, like, oh, this isn't really, this film that I'm trying to make, whatever it is, isn't about what happened, right? Like, in the beginning, I came into it naively thinking, like, I'm going to find this one thing and it's going to, like, unlock everything for me and tell me who I am and, like, what I'm supposed to do. And it just, like, I could see it not going that way. And it was more, almost became this exercise of me kind of being able to talk to my dad, you know? It was just, that's it. It's just, like, being able to talk to him and, like, just who are we? Who are you? Where did you come from? You know, like, why don't we, I guess I should preface this too with, like, I have no relation to my dad's family besides him. I don't know anyone over there. I kind of know my aunt, but that has been a very rocky relationship. Right.
Because you, on your mom's side, you've been able to visit Japan a lot.
Yes.
But your dad himself has not been back to Iran since 1978.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and it's not even has to do with the revolution or anything. They just have a lot of, like, a toxic family environment when they were growing up.
Right.
So that's why he decided to cut himself off. So I never... So I realized, and it was really emotional for me too, you know, just being in the midst of all this. So I realized, since it's not about this end goal, although that would be a resolution to other people, for me it wasn't. It was more about, I'm able to talk to my father now. And also I realized, like, this is a living family. It's my family. Like, all these people are still around and I still see them, and I don't want to ruin that. And I don't want to, like, feed that fire that that came from the same, I guess, ashes of this toxic environment that my dad was trying to leave. So that's why I stopped. To be honest, though, I didn't necessarily stop asking questions or anything like that, but I think the film opened it up to my parents that I was interested in this topic and that it kind of helps me in some way as a person. And then I eventually, my dad calls me after he watched the film. They were like, okay, you know, whatever. Like, I think my mom asked if we wanted cookies or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay, that didn't go well.
Wow.
Yeah. But I think they just didn't know how to take it really or what to say. But 2 months later, my dad called me and said, maybe we should talk about some things. So we talked a little bit more. I didn't record it or anything like that. And that was really nice. But I realized then too, even more so, that it kind of, me making the film kind of brought us closer together. And that was great. That's really amazing. Yeah.
Did you and your dad have, have you had a tough relationship in the last 33 years?
No, not really. No. I mean, he worked a lot, you know, so there's that. But it wasn't, his relationship with his father was really, you know, it was very abusive, and, like, a lot of things like that would go on. That's where the sort of toxicity comes from. And we didn't have that at all. I just would say, because he decided one day that, and this was during my lifetime, because I remember playing with my cousin and going over to their house, my aunt's house and all that. But one day, for some reason, decided to, no, I'm not going to talk to anybody in my family. And I was young enough to not really think about it. And then gradually, as I became older, I was like, why don't we see them anymore? Like, what? We go to Japan all the time, but, like, why? I know no one on this side of the family. Right. And whenever I bring it up, it seems weird. You know, there's a weird vibe happening. And so it really, it didn't come from any sort of bad relationship between my father and I. It was more of, like, almost this mystery that was always lingering in the back of my head. I should say too that I've found, at least some of the festivals that I've been to with the film and some other people that have seen the film online, everyone has this story. Like, it seems to be, I feel like it's a really specific story to my family, but because it's so specific, it's very universal to a lot of people. Yeah. A lot of people have something like that, where they cut themselves off from a family, or something happened that no one talks about it. And it really, like, rippled throughout the family. And it's been really interesting to talk to people about that, because when I was making it, I was just like, this is cool. I'm like editing in this weird way, and and like
Right.
I'm crying right now as I'm making it because it's so emotional, and it was just like really, it was a very personal project. So I never thought that it would have that kind of impact on some people, that they would have like a very similar story that they would want to share with me. My friend asked me, like, that must have been hard to like get this information. And I said, yes, it's stuff that I've been trying to get for so many years, but couldn't. And something that I realized is that the film itself, while I was making it, it was kind of like an excuse for me, like an icebreaker almost, to get these stories from my family members.
Yes.
Because I could just say, I am making something.
Yes.
Can I talk to you about
Yeah.
it? Rather than like we're at the dinner table and all of a sudden bring some really heavy shit up.
Yeah.
Like that doesn't work ever. So I would say that, like, for other people who would be interested in it, it's good to have a vehicle like that. Even if you're saying, like, I'm making a photo album, or
Yes.
I'm making, something, I'm documenting our family history or something, that I think that kind of helps a lot.
Something you and I have talked about a little bit. So, think the world is getting worse.
Okay, this question, yes.
How do you save your kid from the racists who are really going to be trying to recruit him?
Yeah.
That's how I phrase it to me. Is like, because
Yeah.
I know that as soon as this baby can get online, for sure.
Yeah.
There are
Which
folks
is like
who are just
next week or
Yeah.
something. Yeah.
there are real organized forces who are just salivating at the chance to talk to him.
Like predatory. Yeah. I don't know. I would say one thing that that I've learned only in recent years, and I think making It Is What It Is opened my eyes even more to it, was just knowing my own family's history, and knowing kind of where we come from, knowing who everyone was in our family. I feel like added to my sense of identity that I didn't have before, and that really informs, I guess, who I am. And I just am curious, or I don't know, you can't ever find these things out, but like, what would my childhood have been, or my teenage years especially have been, had I known more about that, about the countries that we came from, or the history of America even.
Why do you say teenage years specifically?
Because when you're a teenager, you're just insane, and like, I feel like you're searching for your own identity.
Yes, yeah.
And in our case, it was, a big, like, half of my family was just not there, in terms of we just didn't have any connection with. And I think if I had known about that or anything, I'm just curious of like how that would have impacted me in my teenage years of searching for whoever it is that I am. Like everyone does. And I think everyone, not just if you're mixed race, it doesn't have to be either. Just
Sure,
like
of course.
knowing who you are. And it's not, that doesn't end with you. It goes back for as long as you can go. Things like seeing a family tree is like really cool,
Yeah.
Very enlightening. So there's that. I think teaching him about our family and where we come from is really big. I want him to have a really strong sense of that, so that when he does, if he ever does, God forbid, have any feelings of doubt like that, or any temptations because of weird racial predators, I hope he can use that to his advantage, whether it's consciously or subconsciously. Like, I want that to be part of his blood.
Thank you so much for your patience.
Yeah.
We love you
Thanks.
very much. You're doing such a good job.
Thanks for interviewing me.
You're such a good interviewer.
I know for me, like, I really connected with food as a kid, and
Oh, no kidding.
eating all the foods from my family's, cultures.
Was this a way that you could engage with like the Iranian side of your
Oh,
family
for sure.
as well?
Yeah. I mean, I can cook a lot of different Iranian dishes, and
Oh, really?
actually, my wife Kayla can do that too now. She's really, really good. But for me, especially on my dad's side, it was that was like the only connection I had to it. So I think the more connections you can grow to, let's say, your past or cultural past, racial past, I think it's better.
I feel like the reason that a lot of folks join hate groups, to be honest, is because they feel like they don't have a family someplace else.
Yes. Oh, yeah, definitely.
This toothbrush. So
That's a good point. Yeah.
so I've been, with my kid, I've been trying to, well, I mean, this project is kind of part of that. Like, I'm trying to document, like, you have a family, you are part of a community. It's made up of a lot of different people, and they all care about you. And I feel like I'm hoping that'll do. That'll count for a lot.
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
What is one piece of art? How did you discover to press the buttons on this? I am so impressed with you.
Future sound recordist. Actually go into a better profession.
What is one piece of art you're looking forward to sharing with your kid?
I think some sort of music. For me, I grew up on like classical music, learning music. And when I discovered jazz, it was like, what is this? This is crazy. Like, they're not reading notes, or like, what? Like, how are they doing it? And I feel like it just blew my mind open. And I hope that maybe, I don't know if it's going to be jazz for him or something, but in terms of music, I can see he loves music right now. So I want to introduce him to something like that. And I'm already trying to do that. He's only 1, so, it's kind of futile. But, as he gets older, I hope that there's going to be something that I'm like, hey, check this out. Or like, here are all my Radiohead records, like discover that, when he's a teenager or something. I think having those moments. Oh, yeah. Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. That's the end of our show. I want to thank Cyrus Tabar. Thank you so much. I'm sorry I mispronounced your name at the beginning of this recording.
No, you did not. Don't worry.
I said Tabar.
Tabar. Yeah, I mean, it's very close.
Oh my god, that is the worst thing to hear. Cyrus, where can folks find you on the internet?
People can find me at Cyrus Tabar, like on Instagram or Twitter or something. And then my website, cyrustabar.com.
Will you please sing us out?
Okay.
With the closing theme of the
closing
show?
Theme. Yes, you can start it.
If you know any song about elephants.
Zo-san, Zo-san, ohana ga nagai no ne. So yo, ka-san mo nagai no yo. Oh. Bye. Say bye.